Hello, this is Janelle from the Counseling Center, and I'm happy to bring information to you about test anxiety. I hope this information helps, and please stop by the Counseling Center if you need additional assistance. So, Test Anxiety 101. What I want you to get from this session is what is test anxiety, how to overcome test anxiety, techniques and resources. So what is anxiety exactly, test anxiety? So one thing we might think about is that test anxiety it might be being nervous for some people. So actually test anxiety is a lot more than just being nervous about having a test, but it can affect your physical, cognitive, and emotional state to the point that you might not be able to think clearly. You might have fog vision, you might have sweaty palms, you might feel like vomiting, and just in some cases where you completely forget everything that you've studied for and you have prepared for that test. And test anxiety is a real thing and does really do happen to people. I am personally one person that suffers from test anxiety in the past until I was able to utilize some of the tricks that I'm going to tell you about how to manage test anxiety. So test anxiety occurs during preparation, so even before the test, right before the test, and also during the test. Test anxiety can occur for many reasons. Most reasons usually is lack of preparedness, lack of confidence in yourself, and lack of self-regulation. Self-regulation meaning that you're not able to cope with stress very well and end up causing actually increased stress by having negative thoughts or fears that you might have that come up. How to overcome test anxiety? First of all, preparation and test time. You want to recreate the environment, reduce distractions, and know what study skills are best for you. So regulation skills, creating the environment. Regulation skills during study time, prior to the test and during the test, allow yourself to utilize regulation. So it's not just about utilizing this time to be regulated during the test, but also when you're preparing for the test, making sure your environment's something that's positive for you, being able to relax while you're studying, being able to not become super stressed about what you are studying, but able to retain the information. When you're stressed, when you're preparing for a test, it actually reduces the retention, that amount of information that you can keep in to allow you to remember the things that you need to remember for the test. So some regulation skills that I put here is deep breathing. I call the 5-5-5 method. This promotes regularization in your brain and your body. The reason I call it 5-5-5 is that you breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds, hold your breath for another 5 seconds, and then release that out through your mouth for 5 seconds. And you do this 5 times. The reason that you hold your breath is because you're actually inducing oxygen more into your brain and allowing your brain to actually slow down. So it's a good way for you to regulate yourself either during preparation or during the test or even before your test. Another thing is that you want to trigger your thoughts. So when you're preparing for the test, you might do something where you rub a stone. One person told me that they used a rock that they held while they were studying, and then they held it during the test. One of the things that I've used in the past is I've used aromatherapy, where I had a lotion that I would utilize during the studying, and then I've used that also when I went to take the test, and that triggered my thoughts to remember of what I was studying during that time I was studying. So really allowing yourself to pick something that's going to help you remember the things that you're studying and trigger your thoughts. Other things is your thoughts. Use positive thoughts. If you, when you're preparing or even when you go into the test, if you're thinking about negative things that you're going to fail before you even taken the test, then that confidence that you have is going to shrink substantially, and it's going to actually cause likelihood of failure in your test. If you have positive thinking and you are confident in yourself and saying positive things to yourself, that you'll work very hard and you've worked very hard, and that you will be more successful in taking your test. You also want to visualize your results. So perception of failure will become a failure. So if you perceive before that you're going to fail your test, then the likelihood of you failing your test is going to be true. If you perceive that you're going to take the test and you're going to be successful, then you're more likely to be successful with that test, especially if you prepared for it very well. Building confidence. Studying in a busy environment and do multiple things at once can be distracting. So find a nice quiet place to go. So this might be the library, your room if it's not busy, a lounge area across campus. We have a lounge area here in Katz that would be helpful for you. Also, don't utilize the blame game. Ask yourself, why are you putting this off? So some people will say they're always distracted, or they're never able to get a loan, or they utilize other excuses of why they're not studying. But honestly, when it comes down to it, is they're avoiding the possibility of studying, avoiding because the fear of failure or fear even of success. Reasons for avoidance is fear of failure, unknown fear of success, and insecurity. So you might be insecure of your success of possibilities. Utilize positive thinking to reduce your negative thinking. Study skills. Please see counseling workshops for further in-depth presentations on study skills, or utilize PrepStep through our CATS department programming. Several people have issues with staying focused and studying materials, so this isn't uncommon. It's really hard to stay focused. It's oftentimes, it's not even, like, you can be distracted by the littlest things sometimes when you're trying to study. So to help retain information effectively, one of the methods that I have looked up and researched is the 15-5-2 method is what I call it. Basically, you study for 15 minutes, you break for 5 minutes, and only continue this no more than 2 hours in a day. So it's allowing, because you can only retain information for a period of time. So if you study for 15 minutes, you can retain that information if you take a break. It's allowing your brain to take time to absorb that information that you studied. But when you try to cram information in, it actually doesn't give your brain long enough to, when you try to study for 2 hours at a time, or 4 or 5, whatever you're trying to study, it doesn't give your brain a chance to relax and retain that information. And most of the time we retain most of our information is when we go to sleep. So sleep is super important for a good study habit and to reduce anxiety. So on test day, use the skills I've discussed with self-regulation and being able to regulate yourself before preparation time, and also during the test. Before you build your confidence, filing thoughts with positive visualization. Regulate yourself using techniques. Before starting the test at your set, give yourself a moment to relax. So before you walk in there, or even before you pick up the pen or you're sitting in front of the test, give your time to relax and breathe and use the self-regulation techniques before you move forward with the test. Go with your first thought. Remember, your first thought is usually the answer to what's on the test. Oftentimes people will go, they're anxious, they're not sure if they answered it right, and they'll go back and change their answers and they end up missing them. Use your trigger thoughts technique during the test. So takeaways from this session. Many people suffer from test anxiety. You're not the only one out there that suffers from this, and it's a very natural, normal thing for people to have. You can do things to reduce your test anxiety by utilizing some of the tips and tricks that I talked to you about earlier. And then there's several resources for you. There's counseling services, PrepStep, library, professors, tutors, mentors, peers, and CATS is always willing to help with many services throughout our building. Thank you, Bobcats, and I hope this information on test anxiety helped you. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions, and have a good day.